What's up, guys? I got some very exciting news about goalies in NHL 16, specifically human goalies in ESHL. The game changers were allowed to answer some questions on the forum, so naturally I asked a bunch of questions because I'm very concerned and curious about what's going on with goalies, and thankfully, Yewybear answered most of my questions. So I'm going to just go down a list of what I asked and his responses to them. So the first thing I asked, I was curious to know if that invisible wall next to the post was still there. And what I'm talking about is if you go down in butterfly and move left or right too close to the post, your goalie will just bounce off of the post. I wanted to know if that was removed. He said he didn't notice any bouncing off of the post. It wasn't something that he was looking for either, so it could still be there, but he said he only played 6 or 7 games. He said he never really questioned his goalie's positioning or what he was doing, so maybe that's taken out of the game. My gut feeling says it's not, but we'll see how the new controls factor into that. So my next question was that there's a new control scheme, and I just wanted him to confirm that, and I wanted to know if he could talk about how different they were from last year. And he actually gives me the real control set. So this is great. This is the first we've heard of this. So what he says is there's currently one button for hugging the post, and it's changed to L1 or left bumper. And he said if you let go of it, he stays there, giving you better control to move off the post. That's interesting. I'm not 100% sure if he means the goalie stays on the post and then you can control when he comes off, or if he just kind of stays in a close, in-tight position. He said there's now a precision movement button, which is left trigger or L2, to move slower around in your crease. He said it's basically the standard goalie movement, what we're used to now, but when you're not holding it, you're a lot faster. And that means you'll be quicker and you'll be able to make more saves. I think that's great. It's going to be tough to get used to, but that's going to add a great learning curve. He said butterfly is now right trigger in R2. I like that a lot better, to be honest. I just feel it's more natural to use your right hand for butterfly and move around with the left stick. Here's a big one. All those desperation saves, so the dives, are now manually controlled, and they're mapped to X and square. So that's X on the Xbox and square on the PlayStation, and that's huge. We're going to now finally be able to control when our goalie dives out to make a save, and rather than letting the CPU decide that. That's awesome. He said all rolls and flying poke checks are now on B for Xbox and circle for PlayStation. That's interesting. I wonder how much those are actually going to get utilized and when. I also heard that when your goalie does a desperation save or he's lying on the ice, that he will actually stay down on the ice, or at least you have the option to keep him down on the ice to make multiple saves in that position. He said right bumper in R1 is currently mapped to nothing, which is very interesting. And he said he suggested to the developers that they map that to the right post and L1 or left bumper to the left post. That makes sense to me. That seems pretty natural, and I've wanted something like that for a long time. He said skating around, free skating is the same. It's X on PlayStation and A on Xbox. And covering the puck is also the same, Y in triangle. Now he said the right stick has changed. There's no longer any anticipation stick. You can do the paddle down butterfly save by just holding down on the right stick. That's nice. You don't have to hug the post anymore. The big thing is to do a big slide left or right in your butterfly. You can push or hold left or right on your right stick and you'll slide across the crease. And he said that's ideal for cross crease situations. And then he also said the butterfly poke check is still up on the right stick. I hope they kind of buffed that poke check a little bit because sometimes you'd whiff on pucks. We'll have to see when we play the game though. Yui says there's a lot less AI controlled stuff, which is great to hear. It means it's going to add a different element to goalie. We're actually going to have to react. We're actually going to have to know when to use these tools. It's going to be outstanding. Now, next question, I specifically asked if the goalies we saw in the trailers were the new goalies. Now, he gave me a response saying that they'd all been redone by Eddie Lack or whatever, blah, blah, blah. They didn't really answer my question because I didn't see a T-push or anything like that in the new videos, but who knows. Then I asked if he had played all three of the goalie classes and if there was any difference. And he said he'd only played hybrid, which is fine, but he said he has to imagine that standout's going to be way better at gloving the high shots and butterfly's going to be way better at saving the low stuff. He just said it'll be interesting to see how they play and who can use what to do what. That sounds pretty ideal. It sounds like each goalie is going to be able to get into their comfort zone, and maybe against certain teams we're going to want to use one thing, and against another team we're going to want to use another. It gives us a lot of freedom, and I think that's important. Now, I asked him about what types of goals were scored on him, and he said for the most part there was a variety of goals, and of course everyone was new to playing the game, so we don't know what types of goals are going to go in yet. But he said a lot of them were scored on the guy just kind of skating around the goalie. Now that sounds kind of like a positioning issue to me. But he said if you were too deep, you'd get sniped. If you were too far out, you were open for a cross crease, which is great. So that means we're going to have the option to save a lot of stuff, and it sounds like we have the tools to do it. I asked him if hugging the post had been updated, and he elaborated a little bit on before, and he said you hit LB or L1 to hug the post, and you have to be near it and pushing towards it to do so. And once you're there, you can let go and slide out or move fairly easily. The trick was getting a hang of switching from letting go to moving to post. He said after a few games it took him a while, but he got used to it, and that's good to hear. It just sounds like it was a little confusing using a new control scheme with new animations. Last question I asked him was about goalie height and what height were the goalies, and I believe B Bunny also answered this, and he said they're either 6'1" or 6'2", which is a pretty average height for goalies. It's realistic, which I'm happy about because I don't like playing big beastly goalies, so hopefully it plays well in ESHL. He also added a couple little tidbits at the end. He said you no longer get a penalty for reaching into the corner zone, that penalty zone, to grab the puck with your stick. If your whole body's in that corner, you're going to get a penalty. But if you just reach in there with your stick and your body's outside of it, you won't get a penalty anymore, which is nice to hear. I also heard that goalies who skate out at opposing players no longer can draw penalties. They actually have to be holding onto the puck to get that penalty. So that'll be interesting to see how they differentiate between what it's a goalie trolling or a legitimate interference call. So it sounds like we're getting a lot of new tools as a goalie, and it's going to help us make a lot of different saves. It sounds like we should be able to save every puck as long as we read the play properly and react on time. Now that is a whole different story in itself because that's completely user skill, which is great. That's exactly what we want. It sounds like there's going to be a learning curve for goalie, and it's going to be tough to learn at first, but the people who master it will be great at it. That's exactly what I wanted back in February, was a learning curve. It's got to be something more than just positioning and trying to let the computer save the puck for you. It's headed in the right direction. There's just one last thing I want to talk about, and I did ask if he thought that the little bit of online delay is going to make playing goalie difficult. Now, that's kind of a dumb question, but I'm assuming they played on local servers when they tested the game, so there's no lag whatsoever there. And even if it's not a local server, they're all in the same room, so there can't be that. Their connections all got to be pretty good. I'm hoping that they update their servers, because if there's the slightest bit of delay, we're still going to be behind the play as goalies and therefore at a disadvantage. So they really need to work on that delay and fixing the servers. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the NHL 16 update. There's going to be another official EA update coming soon, so stay tuned for that. Be sure to subscribe, and thanks for watching.